What's going on, guys? Kalamazi here. The Christmas tree is gone. I still haven't gotten a haircut. Nothing else has really changed. And today I want to talk to you guys a bit about the state of Warlock Tier sets, Destro, Demo, Aff, 2-piece, 4-piece in the current PTR version that we have now. Now, we've had the chance to basically test all of Heroic, all of Mythic, and we've actually had most of Normal tested as well, the first 8 bosses. So we've gotten the chance to play with Aff, Demo, and Destro in their current forms, and I have some conclusions that I've come to. So, playing with it has changed my opinion. Playing with it has changed my opinion of the bonuses a bit here and there. I want to talk about them today. Concerns, things I like, things I don't like, and I guess just how I sort of anticipate and or think things might go heading into, well, patch 9.2 and the later stages of 9.2 PTR, I suppose. Now, before we get too far into the actual video, I want to give one massive shout out to all my patrons. Guys, thank you a million times for all support. Truly, really do appreciate it. Thank you so much, dudes. Heads up, the 9.2 spreadsheet is now live. The tier 3 Fell Guard rank my Patreon higher does indeed get early access to that. There should be a link somewhere up here as well as down in the video description if you're interested in supporting. And also any week auras, profiles, or add-ons you guys see here all for free on my Twitch. If you want to swing by, grab them, or in the Discord. Links to both down below. So with that being said, let's get into it, starting off with the one that got the most changes, Destruction. Okay, so like I said, jumping in the Destro. The biggest changes, okay, the change they made for the 2-piece and 4-piece is that it's consistent now. Every 10 shards you spend, you get a free Random Fire, you get a free Chaos Bolt, which whenever you cast it gives you a free Infernal. It's a Blasphemy. It's a huge purple Infernal. You'll see it in a minute here for 8 seconds. The Blasphemy does indeed bring Reign of Chaos with it. If you have your main Infernal down, it extends Reign of Chaos by 8 seconds. If you cast 2 Blasphemies within an 8-second window for whatever reason, it will give you this large, like, pulsing, like, stun kind of AoE as well. It's actually pretty cool, and it's awesome that it works with Reign of Chaos. Now, it has greatly devalued Roaring Blaze, which is sort of awkward, but I mean, hey, Reign of Chaos is more exciting anyways, to be honest. So, but when it came to the actual sims, now previously, the 4-piece was not as good as this, right? It wasn't as good as these sims I'm going to show in a second here, because of consistency and the lack of consistency, where at times I go 2.5 minutes without a single proc and it felt terrible, and at times I get 3 in my opener and it felt great. Well, here are the sims for 0 to 4-piece. These are single legendary sims. This is only with Wilfred's. I'm not playing DSS here because we're not getting double legendaries to week 5. So early prog, you know, these are the more relevant sims. 2-piece, which is the actual, you know, free Chaos Bolt, free Rain of Fire. A bit of an increase there, here and there. The 4-piece, though, with Reign of Chaos, playing Wilfred's, a 22% DPS increase. This is pretty big. And the crazy thing, it gets even better in big AoE. A 40% DPS increase. Pretty wild. 39, give or take, however you want to look at it, you know, but pretty wild. Because you're getting multiple Blasphemies down at times. You're getting multiple Blasphemy, Infernal, Immolation, Auras rolling. You have that Reign of Chaos window to further fuel more Infernals in your AoE, whether you're in your main Infernal or not. It's a very large increase to our AoE, which was already good in the first place for Destruction. And the 2-piece still, hey, you know, maybe a little bit here and there, some free Reign of Fires, but it's really strong. It's super solid. Now, spoilers ahead, overall, this single target is not incredible. I do think Destro still needs some buff to single target in a little bit. A single target and or Havoc-based cleave. But one of the coolest things that you can do with this actual tier set now, which you couldn't do before, which, let's say, for example, you're on a fight, I'll use Anduin, for example, where you need a pretty relevant damage profile. Should have held my orb, not a big deal. You need a strong damage profile at a certain point in time. Let's say when you go downstairs to fight the actual, you know, adds to give Anduin energy, right? I'm pooling resources. We're going down about, you know, 15 seconds. You can stack your actual Impending Ruin effect, which is the actual tier piece that gives you, you know, the free Chaos Bolt, the free Rain of Fire, which then gives you the free Infernal to 8 stacks, to 10 stacks. And then when you have that all stacked up, you're waiting for that actual damage event coming. All right, build some shards, build the 4 shards, 5 shards-ish, give or take. Then you get to the 10 stack. Let's say, for example, here we're going down in a second. I build up my 10 stack. I'm going here, build some shards. Here we go, a little bit here and there. All right, bang. We go downstairs, right? Going down, we're down. Infernal. Bolt. Multiple Infernals rolling. And look at the shard gen you can get, the shard gen you get here, right? It just fuels more and more Infernals in this window, a Havoc window. You can just blast things down. I have so many shards here. I have so many shards, right? It gives a crazy amount of 2-target cleave, and even single target if need be. And also keep in mind, once again, this is more shard gen. It extends your Reign of Chaos. You can get a pretty strong damage profile in this actual window. So it's really cool the tricks you can do with the actual 4-piece. Now, I would assume when we actually get more play with this and stuff in raid testing and just sims in general, you're probably going to want to have a 10 stack going into your player bound infernal regardless, because of the extra blasphemy infernal on top of the main player bound infernal, more shard gen, more random chaos chances, more infernals. It just snowballs from there. Everyone's been in that Mythic Plus key where you're in your infernal window, you drop your rock, random chaos starts, and you get that proc off the first rain of fire, and it feels great because the infernal snowball. And then everyone's also been in that spot where you cast your first rain and second rain and third rain and fourth rain, and you have no spawns because random chaos RNG sucks. Blasphemy, or blasphemies, I guess, the 2-piece 4-piece sort of helps alleviate that issue a little bit. You do still have some RNG here and there. It's a bit frustrating, but it's a very strong damage profile that you can stack. I've had about a 54-ish% uptime on Reign of Chaos in single target over like 5-ish minute just dummy smacking test, whatever, with Wilfred's. It's pretty wild. Overall, I'm a pretty big fan of the Destro 2-piece 4-piece. I do think it probably could use a bit, Destro itself could use a bit of a buff in single target, maybe like buff Bolt. I think the best option is to buff Chaos Bolt and not to give us an aura buff. You can aura buff us if you want, and it's fine, but it increases our AoE at that point too, which is already very strong. I'll take it. I just assume that it's probably not something Blizz wants to do. I think the best buffs would be to Chaos Bolt directly, and maybe some kind of like extra modifier to Havoc's transfer window. Maybe make it like 70% transferred instead of 60. That would probably go a long way in addressing Destro's issues, because if you go into this tier with Destro being in the state that it is, it might see play on a few fights, but I do think it's still relatively lacking, and it's probably going to be carried by the 2-piece 4-piece in certain fights where you want that big damage burst profile. Similar to Destruction, I'm also pretty happy with Demonology's 2-piece and 4-piece. Yes, okay, they're both a pretty substantial DPS increase. Putting that aside, I'm just happy with where they've landed for the most part. They're not like, it's not like they change your rotation a crazy amount. We're not like pressing new talents, new abilities, but it's sort of cool having a third dog round, a third Dreadstalker. It adds a lot of value to legendaries like Grim Inquisitors. It adds a lot of value to things like FTS and Dreadlash and Carnivorous Stalkers. Makes them even better than they already are. And the 4-piece giving you a chance to spawn a malicious imps, also pretty cool. Their actual impact in AoE, if you spawn them with implosions, is pretty strong. Over the course of multiple keys I've run, their spite damage, which is whenever you implode them, it's been like 8 to 9% of my damage. I'm sure it'd be more in heavy AoE keys and larger pulls too. It's actually pretty impactful. There's a bit of RNG in it, being a 15% chance per shard spent to summon one, but hey, it's there. And the cool thing about the 2-piece with the third dog is that it guarantees you that third dog, that higher chance to rechomp, meaning Dreadbite again, and get the FTS application again, with Carnivorous Stalkers being a thing. The higher haste levels you have, the more chomps they do. It's a really synergistic build. It's really cool. And interestingly enough, in the sims that I've run, which I don't have Vile Fiend comparison sims here, I'm sorry, but actually FTS has edged out Vile Fiend by about 30-ish DPS on this character, playing a 265 Carnivorous Stalkers Conduit. Now, it was behind Vile Fiend by about 20-ish DPS playing a lower level Conduit, but the higher chance you have to Dreadbite, the higher chance you have to reapply FTS, and it just snowballs from there. Sort of similar to how like Reign of Chaos is with Destro in a sense, right? So a 21% increase for the 4-piece in single target. The malicious imps now indeed are affected by demonic consumption as well, which adds a bit of RNG to it. But for the most part, honestly, the opener is pretty much the exact same. If we're playing Dreamweaver, you're just going to cast your bolt, which is pre-orb, but whatever, it doesn't matter. Pop my Grimoire, not playing Vile Fiend, cast my dogs. I Ruby here if I had it, then just build some imps. Build some imps. Honestly, I'll launch this and just go into your Tyrant window, right? I don't know if I can even hand again here. Probably could have. And then you just pop your Soul Rot and you go, right? I got one malicious imp out here, and we're just zooming, right? There's a bug on PTR where Tyrant doesn't siphon health from your pets, but it does indeed work towards decon. And look at the FTS cover. Okay, well, you would see it. One bug since alpha. Actually, they're both bugs. This is a great thing to see here. So there are 2 bugs that have been present since alpha. Number 1, demonic consumption does not work. The way to fix it, log out, change your talents. Number 2, FTS, the talent, just doesn't apply to dummies. Doesn't apply to anything. Way to fix it, log out, change your talents. If you're in a raid setting, damn, that sucks, man. I don't know what to tell you. So both bugs on camera. Anyways, moving on past that. So having the actual FTS coverage with your Tyrant outcasting Demon Fires is really relevant too, because the third dog, higher FTS uptime, more potential coverage for your tyrant in the actual Demon Fire window, because FTS now affects Demon Fire, which is really, I can't even log out, which is really, really cool. I'm sorry. So I'm glad we caught these bugs on camera finally, but yeah, so I mean, 2-piece, 4-piece, just solid overall. And the cool thing is, not having to play Vile Fiend means that if you're in the middle of a tyrant setup and get a mechanic on you or whatever, everyone's been there where you scuff a tyrant setup and it feels really bad because you have your Vile Fiend out who's wanting to be extended, but you're running around doing a mechanic instead. Now, if you're in a smaller tyrant, just the Vile Fiend Dogs Imp tyrant, just you're not playing Vile Fiend anymore. Just cast your dogs again, push it back 10 seconds, and you're fine. You get the same size tyrant you had before. It's pretty cool. If you scuff a Grimoire Tyrant, I don't know what to tell you. It's a bit unfortunate, but it's cool. It adds a bit more mobility, a bit more consistency to Demonology. And honestly, this build is really good to play in +2. So I've been... Let's see if it's working now. Let's just take a brief look and see if it's working. This is actually very awkward, but I'm glad we caught it here in a sense. I've been pretty impressed with the 2-piece and the 4-piece overall. I'm also very happy that Blizz kept it at a 100% chance for the dog to spawn. Right? It's working now. There you go. And they didn't change it to... being 1 and 2, 1 and 3, whatever. The consistency of the 2-piece is super strong. It sort of changes the core talents of the spec a bit, but I like it. It makes the spec feel better. Doesn't feel as punishing in a sense either if you stuff a tyrant. And the 4-piece being a bit RNG, sort of set it and forget it, but once again, is decon working? It is, look at that. This is what a profile should look like. Makes it feel pretty good. So TLDR, I'm pretty happy with Demo 2-piece, Demo 4-piece. It builds upon the spec's strengths, which is single target and stacked AoE cleave damage, which is what I think Tier is more or less meant to do, within reason, right? Hey, and at the same time, it's a 21 DPS, percent DPS increase. Oh, and an AoE, it's 30. Sorry. Yeah, malicious imps, spite damage. Actually, let's take a look at it here briefly. I believe, what is the actual spite damage from them here in AoE? Where is spite? 9.7. Yeah, in a stacked 3-target setting. The 4-piece is pretty wild in AoE, not including the actual implosion damage it adds into. I'm a fan. Demo and Destro, I think are both pretty solid at this point. So for the most part, like I said, Destruction, Demonology, I'm pretty big fans of that 2-piece, 4-piece across the board, both of them across the board, right? Affliction's in a bit of an odd spot. So I don't personally hate the AF 2-piece, 4-piece, but the more I've tested with it, the more I've played with it over the past like 48 hours and run sims and look at things, I think it needs some help, right? I think I'm a bit, I wouldn't say higher on it than other people, because I recognize and agree with the areas it needs help in. I think I just more or less understand where they're trying to go with it. I just think it might have missed the mark or will miss the mark depending if it goes live or not, right? So AF sims, I sim Malefic Wrath and Synergy because like there's applicability to both. So number 1, by the way, look how low the damage is with one legendary. It's sort of odd. I'm surprised it's this low. 10-2 versus Destro being 10-5. We know Destro's not good in the first place. Yeah, it's also a 10% DPS increase with the 4-piece from the 0 versus Destro being 21 and Demo being 21 as well, right? So this is single target Malefic Wrath. This is more or less the good version of AF, and this is also, I want to say, playing one legendary once again. We're not running double legendary sims because they won't really be relevant until like week 5, and you know, week 5 we'll talk about it more then. We'll run different sims, all that kind of stuff, whatever, what have you. So for the most part, okay, so there are some issues that I see with the Affliction tier sets, right? Now, for those who don't know, here's the actual set. 2-piece rapture damage increased by 50%. And each time you rapture, it increases agony, corruption, and UA duration by 2 seconds. Sort of cool. It's cool. I like the actual duration increase, right? The 4-piece, while corruption, agony, and UA are active, your drain soul has a 10% chance to make your next Malefic Rapture cost no soul shards. This changes the Shadow Bolt if you're playing Nightfall or ID. We did play ID on Pantheon. It was pretty good. The thing is, when it comes to council-based fights, and there's multiple issues with this 4-piece, I feel like, when it comes to different settings, right? When it comes to 2-target, 3-target, 4+ target settings, especially Mythic Plus, how often am I casting my filler? Not very often. Not very often. Because I'm juggling agonies or corruptions or casting seeds for corruption refresh or just casting seed of corruption in general from in Mythic Plus because it's my main AoE filler and shard consumer and not Malefic Rapture. Or I'm doing one of many things, right? Look at the actual sims here. This is the 5-minute one boss target sim. Look at, like here, 10% increase, right? This is playing Malefic Wrath for what it's worth. Look at the actual AoE sims. The 4-piece loses value because you're just not casting a filler anywhere near as much, right? It's still increasing rapture damage. It's still rapturing in 3 targets, but you're just not casting it as much. So you're like Shadow Bolt or Drain Soul. So you're not getting as many procs. You want to see, we can go to Synergy Sims. Synergy, 10% increase in single target. In 3 target, it's even worse. Figure that out and tell me what, I get what they're going for. I actually like the general idea where it goes in a sense, but I just don't think the more I play with it over the past day or so and the Sims I've run, I don't think it's really hit the mark completely when it's the actual filler that you're casting to proc the 4-piece. Now, we made this suggestion like a few weeks ago before the tier overhaul for Destro and a bit some changes to Aff. I'm going to make it again. Now, there's some positives and some negatives to it, but in the end, I think it's probably the best middle ground outside of an overhaul. And I wouldn't hate an overhaul at this point because, like I said, when it comes to Aff's applicability and things, it's obviously not good in single target, being the worst of all 3, depending how you're looking at it, with legendaries and things. Okay, hopefully it's good in council-based cleave, but the 4-piece doesn't really work very well in council-based cleave. So I have a few suggestions. Oh, by the way, the 4-piece is also dead in PvP. I don't do arenas or RBGs or anything, but everyone said the 4-piece is like just dead in arenas and every kind of PvP you can get into. Sort of makes sense. If you're casting multiple Drain Souls or Shadow Bolts in arenas or wherever you are, I don't know what's going on, but you're, yeah. So anyway, so the changes I suggest, or I have suggested, I guess, change the 4-piece to Unstable Affliction instead of Drain Soul or Shadow Bolt. Now, I get it might not be as fun or as interactive, but I think a shift from one of these two is probably needed for the 4-piece to become more relevant in council-based cleave, right? Yes, I know that you can play 3 UA build in arenas or PvP. Just put an ICD on it. I don't know. I'm sure they can figure it out, right? But it would technically be the same proc rate in single target and 10,000 target because there's 1 UA limit in PvE, and they could probably cap it in PvP and it'd be fine. I don't think an ICD is the way to go either, but they can probably work some other way around it. Either way, I think shifting it to UA, because for the most part, even in heavy AoE Mythic Plus, like when I'm opening on a pack, I'll precast a seed, precast a UA, start rolling agonies, and all my dots are up, right? But when am I casting a Drain Soul? My opener in Mythic Plus is precast seed, precast UA, agony, soul rot, dark soul, dark lair, seed of corruption times 7, refresh something else. I don't cast a Drain Soul. I'm never casting a Shadow Bolt. So I have a dead 4-piece. It's just dead. It's just dead, right? You don't do anything with it, you know? Even when you do, the actual damage increase is just not really there as much as it should be, right? So I think shifting that towards UA would be a good step in the right direction, right? Because at the same time, if you're playing Seed of Corruption in a cleave-based setting, you're not playing Siphon Life, you're not playing Phantom Singularity or Vile Taint, so you're losing, you know, anywhere from 1 to 2, at times, maybe even 3 dot applications per target. So Rapture hits for a lot less than you would playing Siphon Life, playing Vile Taint, playing whatever, you know? So I get where they're going with it. I don't mind like the design, I guess, process behind it, but I just think that in its current form, it's going to miss the mark. It's going to leave Aff in a pretty awkward state with tier acquisition and probably just the tuning of it. Honestly, going into this raid in general, yeah. So I hope that's probably the first thing I think needs to be addressed. Number 2. Allow the 4-piece to give you either a Rapture or a Seed of Corruption proc. Honestly, you could tie a Seed of Corruption damage buff into this thing too. Like I don't know, increase seed damage if you want the 2-piece. But realistically, I think the 4-piece needs to be either Rapture or Seed of Corruption, because like I said, we don't really cast Rapture in Mythic Plus, right? There have been some builds that have been mentioned a bit on PTR with like Vile Taint and Wrath and Agony and Wrath and Consumption. That's double legendary stuff down the line. Honestly, like that still most likely won't end up beating the huge burst that DSS and So the Seeds can bring with that Aff strong damage profile every minute, right? We cast Seed of Corruption with So the Seeds in AoE. I'll throw a Rapture if I get it, but I'm going to have an Agony and a Corruption up. That's going to be it. It hits like a wet noodle, right? And that's probably going to be at the end of the actual pack dying because I'm shard sniping for the next pack because I don't cast Drain Soul or Shadow Bolt until I've already cast 35 different spells, right? So I think shifting that towards Unstable Affliction would probably would make a decent bit of a difference. So number 1 here. Number 2, have it affect seed. Realistically, even if these both are implemented, though, I still think the 2-piece, 4-piece are just behind a bit. I don't really know how to address it. I mean, even in single target, like, I don't think Destro's in a good spot in single target. It's behind Demo by like, 1200 DPS, and this is like one of the higher end Destro sims, right? Yeah, and then you got this. I don't really know what to say, right? I get the design philosophy behind it. I get the ideology behind it. I like it, but I just don't know if it's gonna be very good with this version of Affliction. I mean, THE mentioned, hey, make it the Antorus 4-piece, where whenever you cast a UA, it increase your dot damage by 20% for X seconds or whatever. Whenever I Rapture, why don't we make it increase our dot damage by 25% or so? Sure, I'm down for that for X seconds. Why not? I just don't. That would be decent in single target. It'd be relevant in AoE cleave. It'd be sort of okay-ish in like plus, but then you have the same problem where like I'm not rapturing in plus. So I don't know. I'm half memeing with the THC and Taurus thing, but I don't know what to do with it. I think we're probably at a point in PTR where it might be a bit too late for an overhaul. I'm not sure, but I think I don't design the game in a sense totally. I think some attention needs to be drawn to this bonus though, because like I said a million times, I get where they're going with it. I think it's sort of cool, and the 2-piece is sort of synergistic with the 4-piece with dot extensions. Theoretically, more filler cast, but in actuality, it doesn't really happen in. Yeah, so I think it needs some attention. Number 1 change, number 2 change. You probably just buff it overall. I don't think buff it. You could probably buff the 2-piece to 30%, honestly, for rapture damage increase. Why not? It would also help. That would sort of help as well, like in single target and AoE, I guess, a bit, because you get. I don't know. You could probably buff the 2-piece as well. It needs some help damage-wise, utility-wise, PvP-wise, council-based lead-wise, and AoE Mythic Plus-wise. So I'm hoping it's not too late for some tuning on that, but I suppose we'll see where it goes. In the end, I played AF on Pantheon this tier in testing, and it was still very good, because that is just like that is probably the best Warlock fight for Affliction we've seen since Antorus with Covenant of Shavara. This fight is incredible for AF, right? But besides that, I hope you like Demo. So yeah, thanks for watching, guys. Hope the video cleared up some questions y'all might have had on tier sets, 2-pieces, 4-pieces, sims, and all that. I've been wanting to make this video for the past like week or so. I haven't really had enough time to do it, but I'm glad I did, because I want to draw some attention to like Affliction's actual just raw power with 2-piece, with 4-piece. Demo and Destro are in a pretty good spot. I'm very happy with Destro's consistency and Demonology's raw power, albeit not like, massive spec changing, but still fun, good. At the same time, you are playing Dogs build, FTS, Dreadlash, basically everywhere. The consistency is surprising with some of the RNG elements in the build. I've been a fan. Just Affliction, I think, needs some help, and I think at this point I want to try and draw attention to it as soon as possible, and hope that maybe something happens with that. So let me know what you guys think of, I guess, these summaries of all 3 specs in the comment section below. Any questions, drop them down there. I'm sure to get back to you. Yeah, I'm curious how y'all feel about AF, Demo, and Destro. Honestly, if I had to rank all them from like top to bottom, I'd probably say I enjoy Destros the most, followed by Demonology. Demo and AF are close, because AF sort of change. It's sort of fun hitting a free proc every once in a while with AF and seeing it change your rotation a little bit. Some procs you chain back to back in single target are sort of fun. Demonology doesn't really change much. It's just the same thing, just more raw power, which is fine. I do think Destro probably can use some class buffs to Chaos Bolt and or Havoc, damage transfer windows. Affliction can probably use some buffs in general too. Demo's probably fine where it's at. But yeah, we'll see where it goes. So once again, any weak auras, profiles, or add-ons you've seen here, all for free on my Twitch. If you want to swing by, hang out, grab them. I also have a link to all the sims down below in the video comment section if you want to take a look at these. So once again, one massive shout out to my patrons as well. Thank you guys for all support. Really appreciate it. Thank you. The 9.2 Warlock spreadsheet is indeed now live as well. The tier 3 Felguard rank my Patreon or higher does indeed get early access to that if you're interested in it. There should be a link somewhere up here as well as down in the video description below if you're interested in supporting. With that being said, thanks for watching, dudes, and I'll talk to you all again soon on stream. Peace.